there is an issue we need to discuss this episode. This episode right here. Now, before I get into this review, I'm going to tell you what happens in case y'all don't know. So it starts out with SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick sleeping. A parallel that I actually liked. And then all trouble starts when SpongeBob breaks into Squidward's house. Usually when that happens, it's not going to be a good episode. He wakes up Squidward to get him up for work. He does miss a teeny tiny detail. The fact that it's Sunday. Consequently, SpongeBob gets kicked out of Squidward's house. It explains that a good neighbor doesn't bother him on Sundays. SpongeBob takes it as Squidward being grumpy due to the fact that he hasn't gotten his Sunday paper yet. He tries to bring it to him, and to no avail. Well, to some avail actually, because the newspaper ends up being balled up. And then Patrick appears out of nowhere. And because the newspaper is a part of SpongeBob, Patrick thinks that it's the newspaper monster, and both he and SpongeBob panic. That was actually the funny part. And meanwhile, Squidward is obviously annoyed with his antics. He's just trying to enjoy his day. He's in this robe, and just as he was about to enjoy some bonbons, SpongeBob and Patrick do the unthinkable. Or at least not so unthinkable. Breaking into his house. They're wearing fezzes, and they explain that they're part of this good neighbor lodge that they claim Squidward as the president. So they believe him to be the president of their good neighbor lodge, which is actually controversial. Squidward tells them, as first acting president, he wants the whole town painted polka dots to make the neighborhood look nicer. So they do that, with Patrick using SpongeBob to disperse the polka dots. That was actually pretty cool. Unfortunately, it's already noon and they pretty much eat up his Sunday. As Squidward peeps outside to see what they're doing, here's where more trouble starts. Patrick inadvertently sprays his red paint on Squidward's face. He stumbles outside, and a couple finds him. Thinking that he's sick and taken to the hospital when it's just paint. Eventually, SpongeBob and Patrick realize that he's gone missing for a while. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier that before SpongeBob and Patrick broke into their house, Squidward ordered a massage special at 4 o'clock. That part's important because by the time Squidward got back, he finds them in his house stealing his massage appointment. And by the time Squidward asks for said service, the masseuse, or at least the man who was supposed to be massaging Squidward, says that his time's up and leaves. This frustrates Squidward to the point where he yells at them and kicks them out of the house, rightfully so. He tells, as he's kicking them out, he tells them that they are the worst neighbors ever because they're horrible. And they're finally getting into their skulls that they're not good neighbors and leave them alone. He only has a few hours of his Sunday left, which means he can get to read Sunday paper. And in said newspaper, he finds a new security system, free installation. He installs said security system, hoping it will keep SpongeBob and Patrick out. And surprisingly, they get in anyway. At least they had a cake that says sorry for bugging them so much. And the weird part is, okay, they obviously see the security system obviously sees SpongeBob and Patrick as non-threatening, which will explain why it said no threat detected. But then, when Squidward threatens to take it back, being angry and all, I mean, they did ruin Squidward's Sunday. Hey, but then again, Squidward was the one that installed in the first place, and therefore the security system saw Squidward as a threat. And not only did it zap him, but apparently it started SpongeBob and Patrick that they accidentally get cake over the system. It was a cold red situation, and suddenly his house comes to life and destroys Bikini Bottom for some reason. That part was not necessary. But since the house has come to life, thanks to SpongeBob and Patrick, he has 30 minutes to enjoy his Sunday, in which he finds a rock to lay upon because he doesn't have SpongeBob and Patrick to bother him. But, of course, the house comes back and they deactivate the system into back to square one. Squidward kicking them out of the house once again so that he can get ready for work tomorrow. He angrily shouts at them to get out of his house, unknowingly seeing a bunch of angry people outside of his house. And one of the people sentenced Squidward to do community service every Sunday for the rest of his life. Along with, of course, SpongeBob and Patrick. And the episode pretty much ends there. So yeah, excuse me if I stumbled. I was trying to recall the events of the episode. Thinking back to this, and I forgot the name of the YouTuber, but he does these SpongeBob reviews, and he reviewed Good Neighbors. As I recently subscribed to him, but I watched a review on Good Neighbors. He had some very solid points, and I felt really bad for him because it frustrated him to the core. Or it seemed like he almost had a mental breakdown. And honestly, kind of think it. At first, when I was younger, when I first watched the episode, I was like, eh. I didn't think of it as that bad. And I mean, given that this is the show is centered around SpongeBob, given the title, we're supposed to root for him because he's the protagonist. And Squidward being the angry guy he is, I mean, he represents wrath. I would say, hey, man, he kind of deserved it. But then, okay, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. But you know what I mean, right? But him, this rumor has it, this is the episode that ended the good qualities of SpongeBob. The episode that ruined SpongeBob. I guess I can kind of agree. But I guess if you cut out that episode, it would probably start with a dark era, which is season 6 through 8, or 6 through 9A, depending on how you look at it. And by 9A, I mean the episode of season 9 that aired before Sponge Out of Water was released. This episode, I can understand where they're coming from. I can understand where they're coming from. I mean, rumor has this is also the episode where something called Squidward torture porn start. But they do, I feel like they appear more prominent in 6 through 8. But it does happen in this episode. Squidward was angry, but he had a right to be angry because he was just trying to relax and his neighbors were annoying him. And the reason why I have an issue with this episode, the more I think about this episode, the more I review it, the more it frustrates me because I realize that Squidward was literally me in the 4th grade. No joke. Here's why. To make a long story short, my 4th grade teacher was not a whole lot of help. One time I was getting a drink of water with the rest of my classmates. We had like 10 seconds to get some water before the next student comes up. And when they got to me, they already counted 10 and pushed me out the way. I was upset about it because I didn't drink of water. When I tried to explain to it, I was too upset. I was apparently yelling and screaming. And she said, "You may not yell and scream." And instead of talking to me, trying to calm me down and let me explain the situation, she said, "Go to the wall and stand." I didn't get a drink of water. Or until security guards or whatever or whomever. My apologies. I don't I don't remember who it was, but she let me get a drink of water. At least she was kind enough to do that. Another time, I was standing in line. Someone cut in front of me. And of course, I was sad about that. I don't know who it was that cut in front of me, but one of the faculty or staff came to me what's going on. I explained the situation. Someone cut in front of me, and she told me that it wasn't a life or death situation, and she set me back down to my table. She told me to get out of line and sit at my table. Of course, I was frustrated. I mean, I did eventually get my lunch, but it was frustrating. It seemed that my experience in 4th grade, I was a scapegoat. And Squidward, like me, was a scapegoat. Like, we get angry at certain stuff that makes us angry. Like, Squidward was angry because SpongeBob and Patrick were ruining their Sunday. And I got frustrated because I was being bullied by some of my other classmates. The more I compare this episode to my 4th grade experience, the more I hate this episode. I never thought an episode that I thought was decent would make my blood boil. Like it does right now. I was so done. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being SpongeBob, 2 being scum meh, 3 being meh, 4 being good meh, and 5 being good. Or GOAT, greatest of all time. I would rank this either a SpongeBob or a scum meh. In fact, this would be 1.5 stars. It's bad. But I've seen worse episodes in this. I might get into it in a future rant. But now I'm going to end this here. This isn't a hate to SpongeBob SquarePants, the series. It's just a rant rather, to this episode. And I hope you respect my opinion, and I'm a SpongeBob fan, and I always will be. I'll see you in my next salute or rant. And this is Gabby signing off.